in parallel to that, so that definitely seems something that I would be interested in.
Okay, great. We really want Guilford Guides to be a dynamic new program here at Guilford. And so we want to know, what are you going to do to make it awesome?
Well, I think I bring a lot of energy and crisis response and customer service. So that combination really prepares for a good experience for students as they come through. I had the opportunity to see students at their best and at their worst, and I've been able to see students develop, and I've been able to see conversations that I've had that helped students develop. And I think that energy is something that the Guilford Guides, from my understanding, that's what they're looking for.
Thanks.
Can you give us an example of one of those conversations?
Yeah, so fortunately, working in student affairs and residence life, I've had the opportunity to wear many hats. One of the hats is as a coach, so I've been able to coach cross country, track. So seeing students that have struggled academically, struggled athletically, seeing those relationships start in their first years, and seeing points of not necessarily burnout, but am I in the right place? Can I move forward? And just having conversations with those students and actually seeing those moments where they take responsibility and they have things work out for them, and by senior year they are all those negative thoughts that they had before, they've ironed out, or they've been able to overcome or build on as strengths.
Thank you.
Curtis, can you give us an example, whether it's a lived experience or something that you can imagine that illustrates a time when your advising philosophy played out the way that you intended?
Yeah, so I don't know if you want me to give my philosophy itself, or I definitely see advising, my approach, as a learning opportunity, and I think in my roles in housing, in residence life, in coaching, living out exactly like that. So I want students to be able to think critically. I want them to be problem solvers, but more importantly, I want them to have an ownership of the process, and especially in housing, that's something that is sometimes challenging because there are a lot of outside factors, typically parents that want to be an aid to their students, but in reality they are doing everything for them. So I think that my advising philosophy is more empowering students to feel like they have control of the process, and that's something that I try to do on a daily basis with housing, and especially with conflicts, which I think parallels very closely to how I work with students and how I would see myself working as a Guilford Guide.
Thanks, Curtis. Could you talk about a time when you had to work on a team with someone whose personality was very different from yours, and how you handled it?
Yeah, so in my first role as a hall director, I co-advised the staff and community for one of the years, and it was very challenging because we had very different directions for a lot of things, but I think that working on a team, there is a lot of give and take. There is a lot of backing up the coworker, backing up the teammate, not necessarily giving up your creative thought, but as a front, a united front. I think that's very important when working on a team. Those conversations can happen behind closed doors and need to happen behind closed doors, because I think that most every conflict can be solved through communication. But as a front, it's got to be a united front.
Mm-hmm. So could you give us, without giving us any names,
Yeah.
Give us a specific example of like a particular event or particular problem that you were trying to solve?
Yeah, so I had this hall director way back when, not at Guilford, not Michelle, definitely not. We were working on the possibility of a haunted house in the residence hall, and we probably disagreed on every component of this. Whether it was more of a safety issue or a logistics issue, and ultimately it went back and forth. Quite a few meetings where absolutely nothing was resolved. But then, just having a sit-down conversation and say, hey, if we can't agree on this one part, then maybe we separate the different, tasks from it, and just kind of coming at that problem with a different lens, because we both had the success of the program in mind, but there's certain things that we were not moving on. So kind of looking at the problem with a different lens, certain things that we didn't have to be working directly on with each other, and ultimately it was a huge success. The students had no idea that we had, disagreed through the whole thing, and looking back on it now, it was a great program.
Cool, thank you.
Cool. Can you provide a specific example of working with diverse populations?
Yeah. So my first year in student affairs, I went to a very small community college about 2 hours north of New York City, which recruited heavily in New York City, and it was in the mountains of the Catskills. So if you know anything of that area, it's a very white, very rural area. So we had our students that were bused in from New York City, and they were a very diverse population. I was one of very few white professionals at the college, and I spent 3 years there, developing my relationships with those students, and as coming in, enforcing rules, it definitely was a challenge at first. But once I was able to build relationships with these students, I can say I'm very close with most of them today, or many of them still use me as references and reach out and give me updates when good things happen. So I think that was definitely my, professionally, the greatest experience working with diversity. But here at Guilford, I think that our student population is fantastic and very diverse, both in gender, race, sexuality, religion, and there's a lot of relationships that I've had the opportunity to build here. Currently, I advise the theme houses, and we do have a lot of diversity amongst all of them. So I think that the opportunities I've had here and the opportunities that I've had at the community college have given me a good view of diversity. However, I know that I'm definitely still learning, and I think that the relationships I'll be able to build in this position would be even more experience.
Thank you.
So we wanted to leave a little bit of time for you to ask questions, or talk, or just to if there's anything that you weren't able to kind of share with us from those questions. This is your time, so you can tell us anything you feel like you want to make sure we know, or ask us any questions you might have.
Well, I think that as the college is changing with the Guilford Edge, the Guilford Guide seems like it's the most bold move, and I think that that's definitely a direction that the college is really investing in. So that's a big part of why I'm interested in it. I think the only things that I'm curious about is where you see this role as the Guilford Guides the next 5 years at Guilford.
That's a good question. In some ways, I think we're hoping that this first set of guides will help us to determine that. I mean, I think we want to see, I'm going to let everybody speak, I'm just going to say 2 quick things. I think we want to see the Guilford Guides as an integral part of the community, in the sense of making connections across campus and, maybe even into the wider community. So I think I see it as a growth experience and something, again, that would sort of be evolving and changing based on the team of guides that we have putting the program together.
As a faculty member that does a lot of advising, I really am very hopeful that that the Guilford Guides program will represent a partnership with the faculty in advising, and that we'll be able to work closely together, and that it's not going to be like a handoff, but rather an addition to your team of advising.
And to piggyback on a little bit of what Catherine was saying, this is a totally new program, right? I mean, we are thinking it up as we go. And so this first year is going to be kind of experimental and kind of, ground up creation. And so the first set of guides is really going to be instrumental in that. But I really want this to be sort of the center of student experiences, right? I mean, this is where they're going to feel hopefully really comfortable and really familiar right away from day one, even during orientation. And so the guides are going to be really kind of at the center of the relationships and experiences that students build starting, for those 4 years.
Yeah, I just want to emphasize the power of collaboration. I feel that having Guilford Guides, I'm really excited about the program because it will centralize the need and attention that first-year students need and deserve at that particular time. I think there's often the questions arise like, where do I go to find this question or do that? So with that, I think that there could be a lot of creativity that could come out of that in that first year that can really impact where we see the program in future years.
Well, thanks. That's the only question that I really had.
Cool. Thanks, Curtis.
Thanks for your time.
Yes.
Appreciate it.